You didn't stop feeling, you just learned to hide it early. You became quiet, not because you had nothing to say, but because saying it didn't feel safe anymore. And somehow, that stayed with you, long after those moments passed. At some point, you realized expressing your emotions didn't always lead to understanding. Sometimes it led to silence, dismissal, or reactions that made things feel worse instead of better. So you adjusted, not dramatically, but slowly, choosing when to speak, when to stay quiet, and when to keep everything to yourself instead. And over time, that adjustment became part of who you are. Not something you actively think about, but something that happens automatically in almost every situation. Now, when something affects you, your first instinct isn't expression, it's control. Like your mind immediately steps in and says, "Hold that, figure it out first." You don't react outwardly the way others do. You process internally, quietly, carefully, almost like you're trying to understand your emotions before allowing them to exist fully. People often mistake this for calmness, like you're naturally composed or unbothered, but that's not really what's happening beneath the surface. Because underneath that calm exterior, there's a constant flow of thoughts, reflections, and emotions moving in ways that no one else really sees. You might even notice how quickly you can shift from feeling something deeply to appearing completely unaffected, almost like you've trained yourself to switch modes instantly. It's strange, really strange, how natural that feels now, even though it didn't start that way. This didn't come from nowhere. It usually begins in environments where expressing emotions didn't feel safe or didn't lead to the kind of response you needed. Maybe your feelings were overlooked, misunderstood, or minimized, and after a while, you stopped expecting others to fully understand what you were experiencing. So instead of explaining yourself repeatedly, you learned to handle things alone, because that felt more predictable, more controlled, and less disappointing. That's when something shifts. You stop looking outward for emotional support and start building your own internal system to deal with everything. And that system becomes strong, you become independent, self-aware, capable of managing your emotions without needing constant reassurance from others. You don't fall apart easily, you don't react impulsively, and you rarely let your emotions control your actions in visible ways. That strength is real, and it's something many people don't have, the ability to sit with your feelings without immediately needing to express them. But there's another side to it that people don't always talk about. Because while you learned control, you also learned to suppress. And those two things can look similar on the outside, but internally, they feel very different. Control allows emotions to exist without overwhelming you, but suppression pushes them down, postpones them, or sometimes ignores them completely. When you learn to hide your emotions early, suppression can become your default without you even realizing it. So instead of feeling something fully and letting it pass, you store it, analyze it, revisit it later, or sometimes not at all. And over time, that creates a kind of emotional backlog, things you felt but never fully expressed or released. You might not notice it every day, but it shows up in subtle ways, like overthinking small situations or feeling heavier than a moment actually requires. Because what you're reacting to isn't always just the present moment, it's everything that never fully got processed before. That's why certain things affect you more deeply than expected, even when they seem small from the outside. It's not just about what happened now, it's about what it connects to internally, things you've been carrying quietly for a long time. And because you're used to handling things alone, you don't always share that weight. You carry it, process it, and keep moving forward like nothing happened. People might even see you as strong, stable, someone who doesn't get easily affected, and in many ways, that's true. But strength doesn't mean absence of emotion. It often means managing emotions in ways that others don't see. You feel deeply, sometimes more deeply than most, but you've learned to contain it, to keep it within boundaries that feel safe and controlled. That containment becomes part of your identity, something you rely on without questioning whether it's always necessary. Because at some point, hiding your emotions wasn't a choice, It was a response, something that helped you adapt to situations you didn't fully understand back then. And that response stayed, even when the environment changed. Now, even in moments where it might be safe to express yourself, your instinct still tells you to hold back, to process first, to stay controlled. You've probably had moments where you wanted to open up, to say exactly what you feel without filtering it, but something stopped you at the last second. Not fear exactly, but a kind of internal resistance, like your mind is protecting you from something that may not even be there anymore. So you stay quiet. Or you say less than what you actually feel, and then later, you think about everything you didn't say. And that's where the cycle continues, because those unexpressed emotions don't disappear. They turn into thoughts, reflections, and, sometimes, overanalysis. It becomes easier to think about emotions than to express them, because thinking feels controlled, predictable, safe. Expression, on the other hand, feels uncertain, because once something is said, you can't control how it's received. So your mind chooses the safer option, even if it means carrying more internally than you should have to. In today's world, this pattern becomes even more complicated, because communication is fast, constant, and often lacks depth. People expect quick responses, instant openness, and emotional transparency without realizing that not everyone processes emotions that way. So you adapt again, staying quiet in spaces that feel too fast, too surface level, or too unpredictable for real expression. And while that protects you, it can also make you feel unseen, like there's a part of you that never fully gets expressed or understood. You might even feel disconnected at times, not because you don't want connection, but because meaningful connection requires a level of openness that doesn't come easily to you. It's not that you don't trust people. It's that your mind has learned to be careful with what it reveals and when. And that carefulness takes time to soften, because it's rooted in experiences that taught you to protect yourself first. But here's something most people don't realize. Hiding your emotions early didn't make you weaker. It made you more aware, more observant, more in control of yourself. You developed a level of emotional intelligence that allows you to understand people and situations deeply, even without words being exchanged. That awareness is valuable. It helps you navigate life with intention instead of reacting impulsively to everything around you. But the goal isn't to stay hidden forever. It's to learn when hiding is no longer necessary. Because not every situation requires the same level of protection, even if your instincts tell you otherwise. Some moments are safe, some people are patient, some environments allow you to express yourself without the consequences you once experienced. And recognizing those moments is where things begin to shift, not by forcing yourself to change, but by slowly allowing yourself to respond differently. You don't have to express everything all at once. You don't have to suddenly become open or emotionally transparent in ways that feel unnatural. But you can start by noticing when your mind is holding back out of habit rather than necessity. That small awareness creates space, and in that space, you begin to choose rather than react automatically. You start deciding when to open up, when to share, and when to let your emotions exist outside of your thoughts. And over time, that changes the experience, because your emotions stop feeling like something you have to manage alone all the time. They become something you can experience, understand, and occasionally share without losing control. You still have your depth, your awareness, your ability to process things carefully. That doesn't disappear, but it stops being something that isolates you and becomes something that connects you in more meaningful ways. And maybe that's the quiet shift you've been moving toward all along, not losing who you are, but allowing more of it to be seen. Because you were never too much, never too emotional, never too complicated. You just learned to hide parts of yourself before anyone really showed you it was safe not to.